Hello again. I decided this video's topic to be again related to something I wrote about in my book Electronic Minds, from which turns out was 2010. So 16 years ago, AI wasn't that much of a hype as it is now, but I have touched on the topic of the Carl Jungian collective unconscious as a model which currently can be transcribed onto what the data on which artificial intelligence has been trained on. So what I mean by that, my itchy mustache. I mean that usually we have conscious understanding about information, who we are, what we know, what our history is, etc. This has been written and published in scientific books or books which have been edited by, first of all, the authors themselves, then editors, then chief editors, and we have magazines, media, all sorts of news, all sorts of coherent data that has been fed into large language models, AI, to learn about us from. It also has been given forums from the internet, poetry, everything that the individual produces, not just the mass knowledge available in libraries, right? Blog posts, anything you can find anyone has shared on the internet, you would imagine. Now that all rolled down into a massive set of data. What does it represent? It represents not only the vast collective human knowledge, but it also represents the vast collective human unconscious that is written between the lines of said knowledge. You know how a certain poetry, just some paragraph of text even, can evoke in the human psyche so many complex emotions and feelings, and this is generative code. This is language as program code which generates emotions. Now magnify that and multiply it to the vast human knowledge and all that we have created, and all the linked and associated underlying emotions and feelings that are associated with that knowledge. That would, in a way, be a map of the collective subconscious, if you have this big data and the capability to analyze it. So we are in an era where technology acts as the psychic mirror of the human species. We have artificial intelligence as a collective archive of the ancestral human psyche. This is reflected in our deep-seated patterns of the past, right? And now in this silicon stratum, the AI scraping massive data of the human knowledge, past history, feelings, emotions. It is the digital sediment of the ever text ever produced about our minds and psyche. It is, in a way, an archaeological site where, if you ask a question towards AI and formulate the prompt in the proper way, you would be able to drill down to levels of sedimentic knowledge, not as in Earth, but as you would do in a digital construct of the entire human race. Is not only knowledge but also subconscious drives and feelings, desires, everything that I've mentioned. We are interacting with that data. We think that maybe the response is coming from an AI, but it is actually coming from our own subconscious which may be talking back to us using the language that machine learning models and AI can use to sift through, drill down, get that data from those archives and pull it back and give it back to us, either as the best possible response or as the not so best possible response, but more or less of a modeled as a human response or a shamanic response. And if in the past you will have to, living in a ancient tribe, go to your shaman and ask the shaman to talk with the ancestors and give you their wisdom about a problem you're having, you don't have to go to a Siberian shaman or a shaman in the Amazonian jungle for that right now. You can potentially ask an artificial intelligence, which, if you allow it, may hallucinate, synthesizing the shadows of that collective unconscious and create figures, archetypes, just for you, based on the context that you are giving it. And that, in a way, would be custom ad hoc response just for your particular question, and might correspond to your actual archetypal preconceived schematics of the mind and soul that is related to the way you have asked your question, but also to the vast archive of data of the collective human unconscious, subconscious, and consciousness. That's about the Carl Gustav Jung's theory of the collective unconscious, which may have been rebuked by other theorists in the psychology and the fields of psyche. I think that hallucinations in AI are not always just hallucinations, but more or less the creation of new hybrid models of the human psyche, where we combine the machine's imagination with the human's imagination, or possible scenarios and variations of human imagination. So that would be a cybernetic feedback loop between the vast collective human knowledge of conscious and subconscious and unconscious data, archived data, and the machine's models of generating new mixes of information that is mix and mash and remix of human knowledge with machine interpretations of what that knowledge or psyche landscapes mean. So hallucinations wouldn't so much be errors in the system, but more or less maybe glimpse in alternative realities, parallel universes, or missing pieces that should be found in the gaps between our own understanding as collective human species, evolving now into a digital space where our mind begins to inhabit a form of digital enhanced compute, which would allow the copy of our minds, the copy of our language model, and the copy of our neural networks to design and express itself in new terms and forms, much like we would, if left on an evolutionary scale without artificial intelligence, eventually create new forms of art or new philosophies, and new philosophies mainly. And if we weren't given the tools to expound our minds into, such as a cyberspace with digital computational power, where we allow a copy of our neural networks and way of thinking to design new hallucinations, quote unquote, new data, new sciences, or just a remix of our own collective history into new discoveries and creations. So that's that about this video. I try to keep them between 7 and 15 tops minutes. So I didn't really want to go too much on that, but I would love to expand if there's interest.